Hi guys, this video is just going to provide an overview for the layers feature inside Convertri. So think of a layer like an overlay. It sits on top of your page and is elements that sit over these in a different kind of way. For instance, if you ever go on a page and it has a banner at the bottom which tells you about the GDPR, or a pop-up which says, hey, why don't you sign up to our mailing list? You can normally close these or click accept, and then you can get back to the main page, but sometimes they do stay the whole time. How you apply a layer would be completely up to you, but it does provide a lot of options for your page. So when you first get started, click Layers on the top-hand toolbar. Anytime after this, once you've created a layer, this button will open the Layers panel, but the first time you select it, because we don't have any layers, it asks you to create one. So navigate to it on the page of your choice and click Layers on the top-hand toolbar. If you had any saved layers, which I'll show you how to create later on, these would appear here. So you could create a layer that you really like and you'd like to use across lots of your different pages, and then get easy access to it to add it again and again. Here in this folder, we can see Convertri's layers. These are layers that we've created for you just to make things a little easier, because there is a set of main basic headers that layers that people tend to use. So there's headers or footers, for instance. This one is a sticky header, which is a countdown to an event, which is a great way of getting someone to feel urgent about signing up or buying your product. We've got a GDPR one. And then these opt-ins provide, an example of how you could create a little pop-up that comes up. For instance, you could program them, which is a separate video that you can watch, on how to create a pop-up which is triggered by the clicking of an element. So the opportunities with layers are really endless, but today we're just going to go over the basics. So we're just going to create a blank layer. I don't want any of these layers today. So click New Blank Layer and name it something. And this layer we're seeing it currently, but as there's nothing on it, it looks like the page is just the same. But a great way of knowing if you're on a layer or not on a layer is see up here. This will say main page if you are just on your main page and there are no layers selected. But if you are editing a layer, it will come up with the name that you have given it. So you can select and deselect the layer in your layers panel, and then you'll see that this changes back. The layers panel is a great place for setting up your layers and getting them to look exactly how you want. So like I said, you can select or deselect to edit it here. And then you can move along to start hidden or start visible. You can change this by clicking. This just means, will this pop-up come up when your page is opened, or is it triggered by something? If it's triggered by something, get it to start hidden, and then watch some of our other knowledge-based videos on how to get layers to appear using actions and events. We might not want this to be visible on mobile because pop-ups or some types of layers can work best on a desktop and not be preferable for your mobile site. If this is grayed out, it's not currently visible on your mobile, but if it's blue, then it is. Alignment options are just at the top or bottom of the page, so when the desktop is open, will the layer sit at the bottom or will it sit at the top? Be aware that if a layer is set to the bottom, it can't be set to scrollable because there is nowhere to scroll. So when it comes to this, you can set the layer to be scrollable, so you can move along it, or unscrollable, which means it is static. This means there's less for your user to explore and go with, which is effective in different circumstances, but that is up to you. Be aware, for instance, if it's visible on mobile, that making it scrollable might be useful because your template, your layer will look different on mobile, and a user may need to scroll it in order to see it completely. So bear that in mind. Here we have a background option. So currently the background is just completely see-through. On mine, it's transparent. But if I clicked here and I selected a colour, and I clicked select, now this background is blocking out my page. So you might use this to get a user to really focus on your pop-up, but alternatively, if you want it to look more like a pop-up which they can get rid of, or is just like the page is still there and reassure them, then transparency it is one of the more popular options. That is up to you. This three-dot menu here allows us to do other things to our layer. So actions and events, just like any other action and event, you can set them to affect the layer. You can rename your layer. You might have created it before and now you have lots of similar naming layers and you just want to make sure you're differentiating. You can save this to My Layers. So this is what I mentioned previously. Saving it to your layers means that you can use this layer over and over again and not having to keep kind of redesigning it and recreating it so they'll look kind of similar but not perfect. You can just pop it on your page and it's that simple. Cloning your layer, you will then be asked to name it, and this layer, now you'll have 2 identical layers, which is good, for instance, if you have 2 layers that are a little bit different but mostly similar, you can create the basics, clone it, and then tweak them. And finally, the option to delete your layer if you no longer need it on your page. If you have multiple layers on your page, you can use this drag tool to reorder them. So if you think of your layers like pieces of paper, your main page is the bottom piece of paper, and this decides what piece of paper sits at the top and is seen first, and then works your way through in a descending order. So if you had 2 pop-ups, for instance, and you want one to show first, it needs to be top of the list. So now I've got a layer on my page and I can pop an image on it. And now if I deselect it, it goes away and I'm editing my main page again, select it, and I'm editing my layer, and I've created a layer on my page. So that's the basics of layers, and I hope you enjoy.